Hey guys, this video is about API and a very basic structure of a GET API. It is very basic that everybody can understand. So, what is API? I won't give you the technical terms. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you are this is you, this is a waiter, and this is a kitchen. Now, you will tell the order to him, and he will tell the order to the kitchen, and they will give him a like whatever you requested, and he will give it to you. So the API works the same way. This is the API. The waiter is the API because you will give a request to him that you need this food, and he will go to the kitchen, and kitchen will give you a response. Like kitchen will give a response, which in case he will give it to you. So remember the words request and response. You will request a server, and server will give you a response, and the waiter is the API. Got pretty messed up, but that's fine. So the basic structure is pretty much simple that you have to understand. There is a future function. It's always a future function, and you have to call the URL. You have to know the URL and what happens if it succeeds or fails. So basically this is a condition. So now let's give out a complete basic code of it. I have created nothing but a stateful widget. So now one thing you have to always add it in the pubspec YAML is HTTP. So let me go ahead, and I have already added the HTTP package. So I'll just call the HTTP. And the main thing about HTTP is you have to always define, uh, after this you have to always give as HTTP so that it gets to know we are doing this. So now basic thing, we I'll tell you why, but let's define an empty string. Let's not define an empty string, but let's call it loading. This is an initial text, okay? This has nothing to do. This is a initial text. And now what was the structure? Remember the structure. A future function. A future function. This can be anything. This can be a list, which in case returns dynamic. This can be a word. This can be a string. Anything. So for now, let's call it a word. Now you can give this function name anything. So I will call the fetch data. So what we did in this restaurant painting is, so we are only putting the request and getting a response. So this is get. I will explain the post and other things in the next video, but just focus on this. Forget what is post, just focus on what is this. So now we are sending out a request and getting a response. Basic, simple. So since it is a future function, we'll add asynchronous. What is the next step? We created a future function, the URL. So now we are going to create something called response. Whatever, you can literally give anything, but let's just say this is a good practice, and I'll be giving it a response. Now you need to define what kind of HTTP function are you doing. We are doing get. We are not doing post. We are not doing other things. We are doing get. So await HTTP get. Since we have already added the package, it will come. Now we cannot give URL directly here, so there will be URL which you will understand when you're working with APIs. For now, just think there is a URL, www.typicalflutterdeveloper.com. So the get function, we cannot define directly the URL here because we need to parse it. So there is something called URI.parse which will convert. Okay, URI. Okay, what is happening? Yeah, URI.parse. So what will actually happen is it will parse the URL that you will pass. So now what was the dummy kind of URL that we did? Typicalflutter.com. Forget the spelling, forget everything. So now we have called this. Now we need to add a condition. So the condition is, there are two things, okay? So let's go back to this messed up kind of thing. So here two things can happen. One, you can send the request of a food to him, and he can go to the kitchen. If the food is empty, then he comes back empty handed. If the food is there, he'll come back with the food. So status code 200 is something if there is a food. Status code 400, 401, those are something if he doesn't have a food. Now if status code is 200, he'll get the food, right? So now you just have to add the condition if, and here whatever we called here response, because this is going to the URL now. So if response status code, if it is 200, then what we're gonna do, we have initialized this data here. So in place of data, now we are using something called JSON decode, because it will be in a JSON format, and we're doing it. Just think, don't think too much, just think whenever we're passing it to the body, like we need it, like whenever we are adding to the data, we need JSON encode, JSON decode. So now here response again, whatever we get, we need to give something, right? So we'll give whatever the body, there will be something called title body in the API formats. So we're calling the body, and else I won't add else 400, 200 or something. If it doesn't, then just give no data. I can give anything. I'm just giving you a string. So this is the basic to basic structure you can get. Now this won't work because you need to create an override function, and you need to create an init state, and here you have to give the super init state, and now you have to call the function. Now the function future function is future data. It's as simple as this. And here there is nothing complicated. I'm just calling this center. I'm just calling center, and I'm passing text called data. I can pass anything. Now the data is there. If the response body is 200, and in the response body it will store something, it will be showing it here. This is the basic structure of a get API that I can literally give you guys. So just remember these things. I know the video is long, but you know it's broken down into super simpler way. So just remember this and try to do this by yourself.